Welcome to the Generation Why Not podcast with Ruth Klein, a 6-time best-selling author, creative brand strategist, and book coach for small businesses, entrepreneurs, authors, mompreneurs, and professionals today. She is the president of the award-winning firm Expert Celebrity Branding, and the Wall Street Journal calls her the marketing maven. This podcast will be interviewing this generation, those who are doing things differently because of their perceptual shift of what success looks like, and who are driven by attitude, not age. They know anything is possible, and you'll hear how this generation feels the fear and keeps going anyway to achieve their goals and dreams, whether they be in business, sports, the arts, or lifestyle.
Welcome to Generation Why Not. I'm your host, Ruth Klein. And this Generation Why Not is basically a generation that are seen as disruptors. And they're disruptors in the best sense of the world. And the ideas at first glance may be thought of by others as impossible or seen as dreamers that need to get a shot of reality. But I will tell you, this generation makes things happen. Why? Because they're focused and they're driven on attitude, not age. And what's so wonderful is that today we have fabulous woman, entrepreneur, artist, on and on and on. And her name is Elaine Hall. She is the founder of the Miracle Project. And I'm going to have her let you know about what that means and what that is all about. And she's even the star of HBO's 2-time Emmy Award-winning film, Autism, the musical. And it's interesting because through her groundbreaking work, she has developed a methodology that unlocks potential. Wait till you hear some of the results that she's going to share with you. You will understand unlocking potential. And what's so beautiful about Elaine is, quite honestly, in everything she does, she creates a culture of inclusivity, enhances teamwork, and inspires others to discover their purpose. She's also a media personality and world-renowned keynote speaker. And I know that because when we speak, she is in Japan many times, or she's someplace else speaking all over the world. And Elaine is a highly sought-after consultant and coach to TV and film companies, the United Nations, universities, corporations, theaters, and faith-based establishments. So please help me welcome Elaine Hall.
Hi, Ruth. Thank you so much for that beautiful intro. And I so identified when you spoke about Generation Why Not. I love that we're a disruptor in the best sense of that word and the best sense of the world. I really resonated with that, being a dreamer.
Yeah.
And I used to hear so often as a kid, earth to Elaine, earth to Elaine,
That's exactly right. And it's so interesting because so many times this generation, why not, will say things that they want to do, and people kind of look at them and they scratch their head or they tilt their head. It's like, no, you can't do that. That's not possible. And yet, what's so incredible with this population is that they make it happen. And you are certainly part of Generation Why Not. You have certainly taken something that up until you got your hands in creativity and purpose was thought of as not possible, correct?
Yes. And I think what was great for me was I had no idea it wasn't possible.
Right.
I adopted, I was a TV and film acting coach. What I wanted was a child of my own. I adopted a little boy from an orphanage in Russia, where my grandfather had been born in Russia. I adopted my son, and when he came to me, he spun around in circles. He stared at his hand for hours at a time. And today we know that that's autism. But then all I knew is he was my son and I wanted to reach him. I entered his autistic world. And when he spun in circles, I spun with him. And we created games and ring around the rosies. And traditional therapists said that I was loony and enabling him. But all I knew was if I joined his world, we connected. I had wanted to be a mom for so long that it was important to me to connect with him, whether he had autism or whatever. I think was the first disruption, was that what my heart told me to do was very different than at the time what was being thought of for kids with autism.
Exactly. And you mentioned something, Elaine, connecting with your child, whether they have autism, you're right, or not. I think that's one of the keys of being an effective parent, is to be able to connect with that specific child. I have 3 children, and I've had to address and connect with each one a little bit differently, even though they lived in the same home, they ate the same food, they heard, the same things, and yet each child was different. And the fact that you knew that, but then you took it beyond even a possibility because you didn't see a limiter there. You could only see, as Generation Y Notters do, the possibility of that working.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it's true. I mean, really, all we all want is to be understood. If we seek first to understand who that person is in front of us, whether it's our children, our spouse, our friends, and we set a mindset to be fully present with that person, to listen and tune in. When I speak about mindset, motivation. My mindset was to be curious and open and willing to see who was this child that was given to me. And my motivation was to connect with him. Then the miracles were profound. I ended up finding a professional on the East Coast who supported me doing what I was doing. And my son evolved from his severely isolated state into where he is now, 23 years later, still autistic, with a job, living independently with support. And he and I presented at the United Nations for World Autism Awareness Day.
Yeah.
So talk about, the mindset of just the desire to learn, and the motivation was, this is my child, and the miracles that have evolved from that. And not listening to the naysayers. I think that's a really important thing. I've heard often, don't bring your new toy to the neighbor next door who may step on it and break it. So I think we have to be protective, right, of our dreams and our ideas, and bring them to the right people, the right friends, the right coaches who may not get it, may not see the vision, but go, I'm behind you. Go for it.
What a Generation Y Notter needs is a Generation Y Notter as a coach, or as a trainer, or as friends, quite honestly, so that you speak the same language emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Exactly. When I coach my clients, the first couple of sessions are all about that. It's learning and understanding who they are first, so that I can be the support of their dream. And same thing as a speaker. It's about learning the organization and what the organization needs and wants, rather than a cookie cutter presentation of what that is. I've had the good fortune to work with you, Ruth, and you've been an inspiration and motivator. And sometimes you hold a dream for people before they even know that they can have that dream. And I think that's what we need to be for our children, for our spouses, for our friends, our clients.
And speaking of miracles, can you share with us how you even came up with the film Autism the Musical, and you end up starring in an HBO 2-time Emmy Award winning film, and then you have a new one that just came out. So can you kind of take us through that journey and how that happened? It's remarkable. It's remarkable.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much. After I saw the progress that was happening with my son, I began training other people to help me work with my son, and actors, singers, dancers, musicians. And I developed a methodology, which is called Inclusion from Within. I've written a book called 7 Keys to Unlock Autism. I started training artistic people how to understand autism. People coming to my house learning about this. I then went through a divorce, became a single mom, and I didn't want to go back into the TV and film business. So beginner's luck, I wrote a grant to create a theater, expressive arts, theater, and film program for all abilities, neurodiverse, neurotypical, autistic, anyone that get kicked out of any other theater program, fully inclusive, those with it and without disabilities. And I trained actors, singers, dancers, special educators, creative individuals in the same methods I had created for my son. And we developed an original musical called the program The Miracle Project. A group of filmmakers led by Kristen Stills and this incredible director, Trisha Regan, asked if they could document the process. Because I'm a generation why notter, I learned early on, always say yes, because you can always say no later. If you say no in the beginning, there's no possibilities. So by saying yes, sure, you can document this process. Then I went, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? So a film company led by Trisha Regan followed me, my son, and others from the Miracle Project, another season where we created and developed an original musical. We performed it live on a state-of-the-art theater in Los Angeles to standing ovations. We did what was considered impossible. And that became Boona Murray. It premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. Boona Murray produced it. The big production company bought the footage, produced it, premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, and HBO saw it, picked it up, and here this little film that followed the Miracle Project for 6 months became this award-winning Autism the Musical. And at the time, Trisha kept saying, and Elaine's the star of the film, and I was so shy. I would go, no, I'm featured. And I finally have been able, due to the right coaching, to say, yes, I did star in that. And my son and I are now co-stars in the latest Autism, the sequel. Again, HBO produced it with Boona Murray, directed by Trisha Regan, and it documents the same 5 children who are now young adults, and where are they now, and where are their families. And they are all disruptors. They are all paved pathways that never were created before. And the Miracle Project has gone on to be replicated across the globe. And a lot of our young people are now they're in feature films and TV shows, Netflix, Amazon.
Yes. I interviewed 2, one being your son, for my book, Generation Why Not. It's remarkable. It's remarkable what you were able to dream up and then activate and follow up in the midst of an arena, of an area where no one had stood before. That's powerful. So let me ask you, what is it, Elaine, that you were able to go past the naysayers? You were able to activate your dream when others and other professionals in this arena said it couldn't be done. What kept you going? What are some of the thoughts? What are some of the beliefs that you needed to have?
The first is I have a very strong spiritual practice, and I call it a practice because it's always ebbing and flowing. And that's where that's mindset. My mindset was always aligned to my higher self. I meditate every morning, every night, and I journal. I've journaled since I was a little girl. And the journaling, sometimes the direction I used to say it was like a Jewish mother screaming in my heart. Like I would hear a voice, what to do. And sometimes I would ignore the voice and the voice would get louder. The voice would say, write this grant, show up, do this. And I found, and this is where the motivation came in, I found that whenever I followed that voice and was motivated, the miracles just started happening. They just started happening. And in little ways and sometimes huge ways. Huge ways, I got this grant when I'd never written a grant before. Little ways were all my friends and support that were telling me I could do it, you know. I actually did, after that grant, the second year, I wrote another grant to a different organization. And their response to me was, well, I like the idea that you're proposing, but it's impossible. And I couldn't help myself because I'm a little scrappy. And I wrote back and I said, well, I'm so glad I didn't know it was impossible because I've been doing it now for 2 years. So.
You know, Elaine, sometimes you just have to be up close and personal and say what you need to say.
That's so true. It's so true. So I think that's it, having a real spiritual that no matter what, I had I listened to that voice and I would go off path and then I would have, one of my friends who would push me right back into the path. And, I was a single mom. I didn't have any income at the time. So I made sure I got the right supports that I needed. I pulled out favors, I'd been in the film business. So I pulled out favors when I was, doing well financially. And so that was one of the things, is having that mindset. The motivation in the beginning, my motivation was, I need to connect with my son. Then my motivation was, I need to make a living for my son. I was so motivated. Then the other was, I want to reach all these children. Our kids in the Miracle Project, they're not lonely. They're not isolated. Their anxiety has diminished. And I want this for everyone. So my motivation is that what we've discovered here, the Miracle Project is now evidence-based. And my methods are used at Brown University.
Right.
So what was called, impossible is not only possible, but it's replicated. And people are doing the work that they had never done before after seeing the film. The film made such a difference in the world. The motivation to help, to serve. When I wrote my book, Now I See the Moon, every morning before I put pen to paper was, how can I serve? How will this help? And that book ended up winning awards and, became selected by the United Nations. And that wasn't my motivation.
When you wrote your book and when you were writing the grant, and when you were putting the Autism, the musical together, it sounds like so much of the direction came from journaling, came from your morning and evening meditations. It was almost as though you had a powerful liner that was an internal strength that you used. Did you notice that you were in that, I'll call it a zone, when you did all that?
I did notice that I was in that zone. I like to say that when an automatic pilot flies an airplane, a pilot goes off course and then they go back on course, and then they go off course and then they go back on course. I had that inner conviction, that inner GPS, and yet I would go into fear. I can't do this. I heard once that in my tradition, there's stories that go along with biblical tales. And I heard once a story that when Moses was carrying down the tablets, whenever he thought they were too heavy, he would almost drop them. But when he would trust, then there would be angels carrying them with him. I felt that whenever I would go off path and be too scared, there would always be someone there to guide me through the next best thing. That's where the miracles would happen. When I least expected it, but I would stay motivated. I would go off course and then I'd have a friend go, hey, Elaine, do that project, What I put together for Autism, the musical, was the production. The found the students, put together, wrote the play, with my colleagues, wrote the musical.
Right.
The production company that Kristen Stills and Janet Grillo and Trisha Regan and Buna Murray, Sasha Alpert, they put together the actual film. I needed to show up centered and calm no matter what was happening. That's where I'm very strong in my spirituality is I know this sense of peace. I know what it feels like.
Yes.
So when I would go off course,
yes.
I would know where to return to.
Yes. And you mentioned something very, very vital. You know the feeling of peace. That's huge. Yeah. So many people don't know the feeling of peace. They don't know the feeling of being in alignment. They don't know the feeling that I call being in the miracle field. We were just talking about this, you and I, earlier, about when all the cylinders are moving in harmony and in the right direction, in the direction of your desires and goals. That is just a pivotal piece that you added there, pivotal. And the fact that you have been so diligent in getting there, it sounds like having that piece was very important to you because at one point you did not have that. Is there some accuracy there?
Well, I think having that piece is essential. I've always had it, my true nature, but I would often forget about it. I let myself, and I think as women, we tend to do that, get lost, either people pleasing, which was my downfall, or being afraid to be too big. So I would lose that. So for me, it was returning to that sense of self, that sense of peace, that sense of knowingness, so that the miracles could happen. I mean, what's happened in my life is nothing short of miraculous, and yet it hasn't been always straight and narrow path. It
hasn't? Oh, come on, Elaine. I can't believe that. So let me ask you, what's an insight you'd like to leave us with?
An insight I'd like to leave you with is know who you are. Be true to your inner self. And not in a cliche way, but in a profound way. And listen to that quiet voice that knows the truth. What is the truth? The chatter is simply the chatter. But knowing who we are, staying true to that path, that essence, will allow us to have the mindset, to be motivated, and to allow the miracles to unfold in your life.
I love that. How you keep bringing it back to the mindset, the motivation, and the miracles. I love that. This puts a whole new spin on 3M. I love that. Thank you so much, Elaine, for sharing such beautiful wisdom and insights and the absolute possibility that what you can think of and what you can dream comes about in a big way. And you are definitely proof to that. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you for this beautiful time together, Ruth. You are just, I've always called you the godmother and the goddess. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk about some of the highlights here that Elaine shared. I mean, it's just, wow. It just kind of, as much as, I know Elaine and she's a dear friend and a beautiful colleague, just amazing that we were able to hear what she had to say as a Generation Y nodder in creating miracle after miracle after miracle in an arena that these miracles couldn't even be thought as a possibility, let alone as a reality as it is today. Those three areas are mindset, being curious, being open, the motivation, connecting, And motivation is so much of it is connecting to ourselves, connecting to the task, connecting to the person we're talking to, connecting with others. It's that connection. And then the miracles are the results that happen when we are aligned with our mindset of curiosity and being open to possibilities. When others can't see it, that's okay. And being open to connecting and reconnecting with however we need to. And then allow, as Elaine said, allow those miracles to show up and own them, really own them. And I loved how Elaine was able to move past the naysayers. She was able to move past those circumstances outside of herself because she has such a strong internal connection, which she calls a strong spiritual practice, which includes meditating every morning and every night and journaling daily. Starting as a little girl, I mean, this is definitely a practice. I agree with what Elaine said. It's something that you have to be conscious about. And I think this generation, why not, is certainly one that is awake, that is conscious. Otherwise, these things could never happen if we weren't at that conscious level. What I call these miracles, I call it the miracle field. The miracle field where we are in alignment. And boy, can we feel the added energy. We feel good. We feel that we're moving forward. We feel the momentum in our lives in all areas. And we may have momentum in one area and not in another. So that's a treasure trove, isn't it? Because then we get to be curious in those areas that we don't have momentum, because that's an opportunity for us to have a learning, to have an insight, and to be able to move forward. I love this last comment that Elaine said, and that is really know who you are and be true to yourself in a profound way. And I'm going to add is part of being true to yourself is owning your talent, is owning the gifts, is owning the pieces that feel good and the results. That's all part, the way I see it, being able to be true to yourself in a profound way. And we all have that small voice inside, and we can either allow it to lead us forward, or we can allow the chatter to limit us from going forward. And we have that choice. But Elaine has suggestion here, and that is to listen to that small voice of truth. And how do you know the difference? I believe that the chatter is what gives us fear and limiting beliefs and limiting actions. And the voice inside that is real, that is truth, leads you forward, allows you to see without actually touching it or seeing it with your eyes that something is possible because you have a knowing. Thank you for joining us on Generation Why Not? And I look forward to working with you and be able to chat with you and be able to share more Generation Why Notters as we move forward. Until next time, I'm Ruth Klein, your host.
Thank you for joining Generation Why Not. We look forward to receiving any questions you may have, as Ruth will be answering them on this podcast. Follow Ruth.Klein on Instagram or email rklein@ruthklein.com. Until next time, a short reminder that success is driven by attitude, not age.